Liana Brady was 23 years old and she was dying in the snow. A broken shifter who lost her wolf years ago. She's trespassing in the territory of the mythical Alpha King Gregory de Jesus, where trespassers aren't imprisoned, they're erased. Just as she accepts death, she hears a child's terrified scream and uses her last strength to free a wolf cub from a silver trap, an act that destroys her hands and poisons her blood. She collapses, shielding the cub with her body, only to wake as a prisoner because the cub she saved is the Alpha King's son. He found her unconscious, and now she's his. Before we see what happens when Liana wakes up, I want to know, where are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments. And here's the real question. Do you believe someone broken can still be a hero? If you do, hit subscribe. Only the people who judge others by their worst moments won't. Don't be that person. Prologue. The cold was a living thing, a predator with teeth made of ice and claws fashioned from wind. It had been hunting Liana Brady for 3 days, and now it was finally closing in for the kill. She had stopped shivering an hour ago. That was bad. She knew that was bad. Hypothermia came in stages, and when your body stopped fighting, when the shaking ceased and the drowsiness began, you were near the end. Her fingers were white and wooden, her toes had gone numb somewhere around dawn, and her lips felt like cracked leather. For 3 years, survival had been her only skill. First, she ran from the burning corpses of Meadowbrook Pack, 23 wolves reduced to ash and screaming in a single night. Then, she ran from the memory of her wolf going silent mid-shift, leaving her trapped between forms, until she collapsed back into useless human skin. She ran from the pitying looks of other rogues, from the territories that wouldn't accept a broken shifter, from the humans who sensed something wrong about her and kept their distance. Now she was running from nothing, because she had nothing left. This was Northridge territory. She knew that. Everyone knew that. Alpha King Gregory de Jesus ruled these northern mountains with a reputation that made other alphas nervous. Rogues who crossed his borders didn't get trials or second chances. They simply disappeared, and the snow kept their secrets. But the blizzard had driven her here 3 days ago, erasing the boundary markers, and by the time she realized her mistake, she was too far gone to turn back. "Just sleep," her body whispered, "just for a moment." Liana's knees buckled. She caught herself against a pine tree, bark scraping her palm, but she barely felt it. The world was going soft at the edges, gray, bleeding into white. This is how it ends. Alone, broken, forgotten. Then she heard it. A sound that didn't belong to the storm, high and terrified and achingly young. A child's howl, raw with pain. Something ancient and primal ignited in her chest. Not her wolf, that was still silent, still gone, but something deeper. Something human and fierce and utterly irrational. Move. Her legs obeyed before her mind caught up. She staggered forward, following the sound through curtains of falling snow. Her lungs burned with each breath of frozen air, her heart hammering arrhythmically. But she pushed forward. She found the cub in a small clearing. The wolf was tiny, maybe 4 years old in human terms, with silver-gray fur and huge blue eyes swimming with tears. Her back leg was caught in a steel snare, not a simple trap, but a vicious spring-loaded mechanism with serrated teeth designed to hold struggling prey. Blood matted the cub's fur, steaming in the cold air, but worse than the blood was the smell. Silver. The trap was laced with silver. Liana's stomach heaved. Silver was poison to shifters, burning through flesh and blood, spreading like acid through the system. For a child this small, this much exposure would be fatal within minutes. The cub whimpered, trying desperately to pull free, and Liana saw the teeth sink deeper. "No," Liana croaked, her voice barely audible. "Don't move. Please don't move." She dropped to her knees beside the trap. Her hands were already useless from the cold, her fingers stiff and clumsy, but she forced them to work. The release mechanism was frozen solid, covered in ice. The cub's eyes locked on hers, terrified and pleading. "I've got you," Liana whispered. "I've got you." She gripped the metal jaws with both hands. The cold of the steel burned worse than fire, and the silver, oh God, the silver, sent lightning bolts of agony up her arms. Her vision went white with pain. She could feel her palms shredding, flesh tearing, blood freezing to the metal as she pulled. The mechanism wouldn't budge. The cub whimpered again, weaker now. Her eyes were starting to glaze. No, not this child. Not today. Liana screamed, a raw, animal sound, and pulled with every last scrap of strength she possessed. Something in her hands gave way with a sickening crack. The trap's jaws opened with a grinding shriek of protesting metal. The cub stumbled free. Liana collapsed forward, barely catching herself on ruined hands. Blood pooled in the snow beneath her, shockingly red against white. She could feel the silver poison spreading through her system now, burning along her veins like liquid fire. The cub limped toward her, nosing at her face, making small, distressed sounds. "Run," Liana whispered. Her tongue felt thick and foreign. "Go home." But the cub stayed, pressing her small body against Liana's chest. Liana's arms moved on instinct, curling around the child, tucking her close to provide what little warmth remained in her failing body. Snow fell on them both and beginning to bury them in white. This is better, Liana thought as darkness crept in from all sides. Better than dying alone. She never heard the thundering of paws through the snow, never saw the massive black wolf that burst into the clearing, shifting mid-stride into a man whose face went white with horror. Never felt the exact moment when Alpha King Gregory de Jesus dropped to his knees beside them and saw his daughter alive in the arms of a dying stranger. But she felt it when something inside him recognized something inside her, a connection that shouldn't exist, a bond she never asked for, snapping into place with the finality of a trap closing. Then there was nothing but darkness and cold, and the fading sound of a child crying for help. Chapter 1. Liana woke to the smell of antiseptic and pine, and the nauseating certainty that she was still alive. Her eyelids felt weighted with lead. When she finally forced them open, harsh fluorescent light stabbed into her skull. She was lying in a bed, an actual bed with clean white sheets, in what looked like a medical room. Steel cabinets lined one wall. Medical equipment beeped softly beside her. Through a narrow window, she could see snow falling against a gray sky. She tried to sit up. Her body screamed in protest. "Easy," a woman's voice, calm and professional. "You've been unconscious for 18 hours. Liana turned her head slowly. A woman in a white coat stood beside the bed, dark hair pulled back in a neat bun, intelligent eyes assessing her with clinical precision. Dr. Baylor York, according to the name embroidered on her coat. "Where?" Liana's voice came out as a rasp, her throat raw. "Northridge Fortress. You're in the medical wing." Dr. York moved closer, checking the IV in Liana's arm with efficient movements. "You shouldn't be alive. Stage 3 hypothermia, massive blood loss, severe lacerations on both hands, and silver poisoning in your system. By all medical logic, you should have died in that clearing." Liana's gaze dropped to her hands. They were wrapped in thick white bandages, the gauze already stained with pale yellow from whatever ointment had been applied. She tried to flex her fingers. Pain lanced up her arms, sharp and immediate. "The damage is extensive," Dr. York said quietly. "You'll have permanent scarring, reduced mobility in 3 fingers on your right hand. You're lucky you didn't lose them entirely." Lucky. The word tasted bitter. "The cub," Liana started, "is fine." "You saved her life." Relief flooded through her, so intense it made her dizzy. At least that. At least she'd managed that one thing. The door opened. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. The man who entered was tall and broad-shouldered, moving with the controlled grace of a predator who never forgot what he was. Dark hair, sharp features, and eyes the color of winter storms. He wore black from head to toe, and power radiated from him like heat from a furnace. Alpha King, Gregory DeJesus. Liana's heart stuttered. Every instinct she had left screamed danger. Their eyes met. The world tilted. It hit her like a physical blow, a connection snapping into place with the violence of lightning striking earth. The mate bond. She felt it burn through her chest, a golden thread tying her to this man, this stranger. This king who looked at her like she was something that needed to be eliminated. His face went absolutely still. She watched the recognition hit him, watched something flash through those storm-gray eyes, shock, then horror, then cold, calculated fury. No. His voice was low and deadly. Not you. Dr. York glanced between them, then quietly excused herself, the door clicking shut behind her. Gregory moved closer, each step deliberate. He stopped at the foot of her bed, and Liana felt pinned by his gaze like a butterfly on a board. "Why were you near my daughter?" His voice could have carved stone. "A rogue, broken, trespassing in my territory. Found with the heir to Northridge in a trap meant to kill her. Explain." "I heard her crying," Liana started. "You expect me to believe coincidence?" He leaned forward, hands gripping the bed frame. "You just happened to be there? You just happened to save her?" "I didn't know who she was." "You didn't know?" His laugh was harsh and mirthless. "How convenient." The mate bond pulled at her, urging her toward him, insisting this man was hers, was meant for her. She wanted to scream at the injustice of it. "You are my fated mate." Gregory's words fell like stones into deep water. "And it is the cruelest joke fate has ever played." Hope, fragile and foolish, flickered in her chest. "Then you'll—" "I had a mate." His voice went flat, emotionless. "I loved her. She died. I don't want another." The hope died before it could fully form. "You are not my mate," Gregory continued, each word precise and cutting. "You are a rogue who was found in suspicious circumstances. You are a security threat. You are a prisoner." He straightened, his face carved from ice. "And you will remain one until I determine exactly what you are and why you're really here." He turned and walked toward the door. "I saved your daughter," Liana whispered. Gregory paused, his hand on the door handle. He didn't turn around. "That's the only reason you're still breathing." The door closed behind him with a finality that echoed in her bones. Liana lay back against the pillows, staring at the ceiling. Her hands throbbed. Her body ached. And inside her chest, the mate bond burned like a hook embedded in her heart, connecting her to a man who looked at her and saw nothing but a threat. She was alive, she was imprisoned, and she was tied by fate to someone who hated that she existed. Lucky, the doctor had said. Liana closed her eyes and felt the weight of that word crush down on her. Chapter 2. The council chamber was built to intimidate. Vaulted ceilings, stone walls carved with the history of Northridge's victories, and a massive table of black oak where 12 alphas sat in judgment. Liana wasn't present. Prisoners didn't attend their own trials, but she could feel the weight of their deliberation through the fortress walls. General Kane Fox stood before the assembled council, his posture military straight, his voice carrying the perfect balance of concern and authority. Silver streaked his dark hair at the temples, lending him an air of distinguished wisdom. He was Gregory's war general, his most trusted strategist, and right now he was building the case for Liana's execution with surgical precision. "A rogue," Kane said, letting the word hang in the air like an accusation. Broken. No pack. No wolf. No reason to be within 50 miles of our borders, yet somehow she appears exactly where the air is trapped, exactly when no guards were scheduled to patrol that sector. He paused, letting the implication settle. I ask you, what are the odds? Murmurs rippled through the council. She saved my daughter's life. Gregory's voice cut through the speculation like a blade. Or she set the trap and staged a rescue to gain your trust. Kane countered smoothly. It's a classic infiltration technique, my king. Create a crisis, solve it, earn proximity to the target. With respect, your emotional involvement may be clouding your judgment. Gregory's eyes went flat and dangerous. Careful, General. I serve at your pleasure, but I also serve the truth. Kane's voice softened, became almost gentle. The safety of Northridge demands we consider all possibilities. A broken rogue appearing in a remote location with your daughter who was caught in a silver trap someone had to place. The timing is too convenient. I recommend immediate execution. No. Gregory's word was final. We investigate first, thoroughly. If she's guilty, she'll die. But I won't execute someone who might have genuinely saved Maxine's life without absolute proof. Kane's jaw tightened fractionally. As you command, my king. But Lyanna saw the calculation in his eyes as the council dispersed, the way he watched Gregory, with something that looked almost like disappointment. The knock came just after midnight. Lyanna jerked awake, her heart hammering. The medical room was dark except for the green glow of monitoring equipment. She'd been alone for hours, left with nothing but her thoughts and the persistent ache of the mate bond pulling toward someone who didn't want her. The knock came again, soft, hesitant. Come in, Lyanna whispered. The door cracked open. A small figure slipped through. A child with silver-gray fur just visible beneath an oversized nightgown, huge blue eyes peeking around the doorframe. Maxine. The cub shifted as she padded into the room, bones restructuring with the fluid ease of youth, until a little girl stood there instead, clutching a worn stuffed wolf toy to her chest. I'm not supposed to be here, Maxine whispered. But I wanted to see you. Lyanna's throat tightened. You should listen to your father. Papa says you might be bad. Maxine climbed onto the chair beside the bed with the fearless confidence of a child who'd never known real danger. But I don't think so. Bad people don't cry when they save you. I cried? In the snow, before you fell asleep. Maxine held out the stuffed wolf. This is Silver. He helps when I have bad dreams. You can borrow him. Something cracked in Lyanna's chest. She took the toy with bandaged hands, cradling it carefully. Thank you. Maxine studied her with the unnerving directness of children. Does it hurt? Your hands? A little. I'm sorry. The little girl's eyes filled with tears. It's my fault. I shouldn't have gone past the boundary markers. Papa told me not to, but I wanted to see the ice caves, and then there was this trap and... Her voice broke. Hey. Lyanna shifted carefully, making room. Come here. Maxine climbed onto the bed and curled against Lyanna's side, careful of her injuries. Lyanna wrapped one arm around her, feeling the little girl tremble. It's not your fault, Lyanna said softly. None of this is your fault. Papa's scared, Maxine whispered. He tries to hide it, but I can feel it. He's scared something bad will happen to me like it happened to Mama. Lyanna's heart ached. She stroked Maxine's hair, the gesture automatic, instinctive. Your papa loves you very much. That's why he's scared. Do you have a papa? I did. Once. What happened to him? He died. My whole pack did. Maxine was quiet for a moment. Then, I'm sorry. That's really sad. Yeah, Liana agreed softly. It is. They sat in comfortable silence. Maxine's breathing gradually slowed, deepened. Within minutes, she was asleep, her small body warm and trusting against Liana's side. Liana didn't see Gregory standing in the doorway. He'd come to check on the prisoner, to maintain his surveillance, to remind himself why he couldn't afford to trust her. Instead, he found his daughter, his fierce, precious daughter, who rarely let anyone comfort her since Eloise died, sleeping peacefully in the arms of a woman who should be his enemy. Liana's head was tilted down, her scarred hands gentle as they cradled Maxine close. There was something in her expression, something soft and broken and achingly maternal, that made Gregory's chest constrict. For just a moment, his face softened. The harsh lines eased. He looked like a man remembering what it felt like to hope. Then his jaw tightened. His expression went cold again, locked down tight. He turned and walked away, leaving his daughter safe in the arms of a stranger, hating himself for wanting to stay. Chapter 3. Gregory came to her room on the third night, and Liana knew immediately that something had changed. He didn't knock. He simply entered, closing the door behind him with controlled precision, and stood there studying her with those winter storm eyes. "Tell me about your pack," he said. No preamble, no pretense. Liana sat up slowly, her healing hands aching with the movement. Dr. York had been right. The injuries were healing faster than they should for someone without a wolf. She didn't understand it, but she felt it, a stirring deep inside, like something long dormant beginning to wake. "Why now?" she asked. "Because my daughter trusts you, because the evidence doesn't add up, because—" He stopped himself, jaw tightening. "Just tell me." Liana looked down at her bandaged hands. She'd spent 3 years not talking about this, not thinking about it, running from the memories. But Gregory stood there waiting, and the mate bond pulled at her, urging honesty, demanding vulnerability. "Meadowbrook Pack," she began, her voice quiet. "Small. 23 wolves. We lived in the Bitterroot Valley, kept to ourselves, didn't involve ourselves in conclave politics." She took a breath. "They came at midnight. We had 23 wolves. By dawn, I was the only one breathing." Gregory moved closer, his presence filling the room. "Who came?" "I don't know. They wore tactical gear, military grade, black from head to toe, night vision, silver weapons. The memories came faster now, sharper. They were organized, precise. This wasn't a raid or a territory dispute. It was an execution. You said you lost your wolf that night. I was mid-shift when they hit us. Something, I don't know what. It was like a wave of pressure that slammed into me. My wolf went silent. Just gone. I collapsed. They must have thought I was dead." Her hands trembled. "I hid in the root cellar while they burned everything, everyone. I could hear them screaming." Gregory's face was carved from stone, but she saw something flicker in his eyes. "You said tactical gear. Any identifying marks?" "Yes." Liana met his gaze. "On their vests, a fox, rendered in silver thread, very distinctive. The fox was mid-leap, aggressive posture." Gregory went absolutely still. The silence stretched between them, heavy and loaded. Liana watched his face, saw the moment comprehension hit, saw his expression shift from neutrality to something that looked like horror. "What?" she demanded. "What does that mean?" "Nothing." But his voice was rough. "It means nothing." "You're lying." She pushed herself up from the bed, swaying slightly. You recognize it. Who uses that insignia? Sit down. Tell me. I said sit down. The command cracked through the room with alpha force. Liana's knees buckled, but not from his command, from fury. You know who killed my pack. You know, and you're not telling me. Gregory closed the distance between them in 2 strides. His hand shot out, catching her arm to steady her, and the moment his skin touched hers, the mate bond roared to life. It was like being struck by lightning, heat and electricity and desperate aching need. Liana gasped. Gregory's eyes went wide, pupils dilating. Don't, he growled, but he didn't let go. I'm not doing anything. Her voice came out breathless. This is you. This is us. This is what you keep fighting. His other hand came up to her throat, not threatening, just resting there, his thumb against her racing pulse. You don't understand what you're asking. I'm not asking for anything. But she was lying. She wanted everything. Wanted him to stop fighting, to stop pushing her away, to acknowledge what screamed between them every time they were in the same room. His gaze dropped to her mouth. His thumb traced her jawline. They were inches apart now, his breath warm against her lips, the mate bond pulling them together with magnetic force. Gregory, she whispered. He leaned in. She rose to meet him. Their mouths were a heartbeat apart. Gregory jerked back like he'd been burned. His hand left her throat. He stepped away, putting deliberate distance between them, his chest heaving. This bond is a curse, he said, and his voice was ragged, destroyed. I will not yield to it. I can't. Why? The word broke from her. Because I'm broken? Because I'm a rogue? Or because I'm not her? His face went glacial. All of the above. That's not fair. Fair? He laughed, harsh and bitter. Nothing about this is fair. I didn't ask for you. I don't want you. And I certainly don't want to feel... He stopped himself, breathing hard. You need to understand something. I will never accept this bond. Never. You could be innocent. You could be exactly what you appear to be. It doesn't matter. I won't let myself want you. Then why are you here? Liana demanded. Why do you keep coming back? Gregory stared at her, something desperate and furious and hungry burning in his eyes. For a moment, she thought he might answer truthfully. Instead, he turned and walked to the door. Stay away from Maxine, he said without looking back. That's an order. The door closed behind him, and Liana stood there alone, her body still humming with denied need, her heart cracking with each breath. Outside in the corridor, Gregory pressed his back against the wall, his hands shaking, the taste of almost kissing her burning on his lips like poison, or salvation. He couldn't tell anymore. Chapter 4. Madeline Zimmerman had been Gregory's intelligence officer for 8 years, and in that time she'd learned to recognize the particular tension in his shoulders that meant someone was about to have a very bad day. She knocked once on his office door and entered without waiting for permission. You need to see this. She crossed to his desk and spread out a folder's worth of documents like evidence at a crime scene. Meadowbrook Pack, 3 years ago. Gregory looked up from the patrol schedules he'd been reviewing. What about it? The official report lists it as internal conflict. Pack politics gone violent, 23 casualties, no survivors, case closed. Madeline tapped one document with a manicured nail. Except I found witnesses. Human hikers camped 5 miles away reported hearing explosions, military-grade explosions, and a truck convoy leaving the area at 0300 hours. Gregory went very still. Go on. I pulled financial records from our military divisions for that quarter. She slid another document across the desk. Kane's unit requisitioned silver ammunition, a lot of it, enough to outfit a strike team. The purchase order was dated 2 weeks before Meadowbrook burned. That proves nothing. We use silver ammunition for rogue suppression. There were no rogue suppression operations that month. Madeline's voice was flat, factual. I checked. 3 times. There's no legitimate explanation for this purchase. And look at this. She pointed to a line item. Specialized tactical gear, night vision, scent suppressors. These numbers don't lie, Gregory. Someone funded a massacre. Gregory stared at the documents, his jaw working. The Fox insignia. Liana's description. Kane's division. No, it couldn't be. There's more, Madeline said quietly. Kane's father, General Tobias Fox, led the old military division 30 years ago, before you took power. He was responsible for the cleansing operations against PACs deemed disloyal to the crown. 15 PACs destroyed. The official records call it justice. Everyone else calls it genocide. Gregory's hands flattened on the desk. Why are you bringing me this now? Because Kane has been pushing hard for the prisoner's execution, too hard, and because I don't believe in coincidences. Madeline met his eyes. That girl survived something she shouldn't have. And now she's here, exactly where someone tried to kill your daughter. You need to consider the possibility that these events are connected. Dr. York found Gregory in his office at 2 a.m, still staring at Madeline's documents. You should be sleeping, she said. Tell me about the toxin. Gregory didn't look up. In Liana's blood. What exactly is it? Dr. York closed the door and sat down across from him. It's manufactured, engineered at a molecular level to target the neural pathways that connect Shifter to Wolf. I've never seen anything like it. But you're certain it's not natural? Completely certain. This took years of research to develop, millions in funding, access to live Shifter subjects for testing. She paused. Gregory, whoever made this was trying to create a weapon that could break Shifters without killing them, make them human, make them helpless. Gregory's blood ran cold. How was it administered? Aerosol delivery, most likely. She would have inhaled it during a high-stress situation. Fight or flight response, heavy breathing. The compound bonded to her system, suppressing her wolf for years. Dr. York leaned forward. But here's what's interesting. The silver poisoning from the trap, combined with the massive blood loss, seems to be purging it from her system. Her wolf is coming back. How long? Days, maybe a week. Gregory stood and walked to the window. Snow fell in the darkness beyond, silent and relentless. Pieces were clicking together in his mind, forming a pattern he didn't want to see. Meadowbrook destroyed by a military strike. Kane's division. Silver weapons. A toxin designed to break wolves. The trap that caught Maxine. Silver-laced. Set in a location only someone with access to pack schedules would know she'd be near. Baited with honey cakes. Maxine's favorite. The trap wasn't meant to kill her immediately, Gregory said slowly. It was meant to poison her. To break her wolf. What? He turned to face Dr. York. Someone wanted to destroy my daughter's wolf and make it look like an accident. Make her weak. Make her vulnerable. His voice dropped to something deadly. Make her unable to inherit. Gregory, if what you're suggesting is true... Treason. Conspiracy. Attempted murder of the heir. He moved to his desk and pulled out another file. Kane's service record, commendations, loyalty, 30 years of trusted service. And I've let him stand at my right hand for nearly a decade. You don't know for certain it's him. Don't I? Gregory spread his hands on the desk, his knuckles white. The Fox insignia, the military precision, the silver weapons, the toxin, my daughter trapped and poisoned, and a girl from Meadowbrook appearing just in time to save her, the same pack his division may have destroyed. If Liana was sent by Kane, she wasn't. The certainty in his voice surprised even him. If she was part of this, she wouldn't have destroyed her hands freeing Maxine. She wouldn't have nearly died. She wouldn't— He stopped himself. She wouldn't look at me like I'm the one breaking her heart. Dr. York stood. "What are you going to do?" Gregory looked out at the falling snow, at his territory stretching dark and vast beyond the fortress walls. Somewhere in this stronghold, a traitor was planning his next move. Somewhere his daughter slept, vulnerable and precious. And locked in a medical room, a broken rogue with scarred hands was healing into something dangerous, something that might be his only ally in the storm coming. "I'm going to find proof," Gregory said quietly, "and then I'm going to end this." We're at the breaking point. Gregory knows the truth, but exposing Kane could tear everything apart. If you've ever felt betrayed by someone you trusted, a friend, a colleague, a family member, I know this story is hitting different for you. Hit subscribe if you believe the truth should always come out, no matter how painful. And comment where you're watching from. I want to know this community spans the globe. Chapter 5. The emergency conclave session was called at dawn. Liana was dragged from her room by two stone-faced guards, still wearing the medical gown Dr. York had given her, her bandaged hands useless at her sides. They marched her through corridors of cold stone into the council chamber where 12 alphas sat in judgment. Gregory stood at the head of the table, his face unreadable. Madeline stood behind him, a folder clutched in her hands, and Kane, General Kane Fox, stood in the center of the room like a prosecutor delivering a closing argument, righteous fury radiating from every line of his body. "Forgive the dramatic, Zhao urgency, my king," Kane said, his voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. "But I've discovered something that could not wait." He gestured, and a guard brought forward a small metal box. Kane opened it with theatrical precision, revealing a compact communication device and several folded papers. "Found hidden in the prisoner's medical room, concealed behind a loose panel that our standard searches missed." Kane's voice dripped with barely controlled rage. "A encrypted communicator, and these—" He spread the papers across the table. Maps, detailed fortress layouts, guard rotation schedules, and a handwritten note that made Liana's blood run cold. "Target confirmed. Air isolated weekly. Proceed as planned." "No." Liana's voice came out strangled. "That's not mine. I've never seen that before." "Of course you'd deny it," Kane cut her off smoothly. "But the evidence is clear. This was a calculated assassination attempt. She tracked the heir, set the trap herself, then staged a rescue to gain access to the fortress, to gain the king's trust." His voice rose. "She's a spy, an assassin, and she nearly succeeded in killing the heir to Northridge." The council erupted. Alphas surged to their feet, voices raised in fury. "Execute her! Traitor! Kill the rogue!" The mob mentality built like a wave, each voice feeding the next. Liana felt her knees weaken. This was it. This was how she died. Not in the snow, but here, surrounded by rage and false accusations. "Enough!" Gregory's voice cut through the chaos like a blade through flesh. Silence fell. He moved around the table with deliberate slowness, each step echoing in the sudden quiet. He picked up the communicator, examined it, then looked at Kane with eyes gone flat and deadly. "Interesting evidence, General. Very convenient timing." "My king," Kane's brow furrowed with perfectly calibrated confusion. "Madeline," Gregory gestured, "present your findings." Madeline stepped forward and began spreading her own documents across the table. Financial records, witness statements, service records going back 30 years. 3 years ago, Meadowbrook Pack was destroyed, she said, her voice clinical. The official report says internal conflict, But purchase orders from General Fox's division tell a different story. Silver ammunition, tactical gear, scent suppressors, all requisitioned 2 weeks before the massacre. Murmurs rippled through the council. Furthermore, Madeline continued, I have testimony from Guard Reed Tyler, who was paid $10,000 to look away from his post the night the trap was set for the air. Paid by someone using military discretionary funds. Your funds, General. Kane's expression flickered, just for a moment. That's absurd. I have the financial trail, Gregory said quietly. Every transaction, every fabricated report, every pack you've destabilized to create the appearance of chaos requiring military intervention, every conflict you've engineered to increase your division's funding and power. He moved closer to Kane, his presence overwhelming. You've been systematically positioning yourself for a coup, using my daughter as the catalyst. The council chamber went deathly still. You set the trap for Maxine, Gregory continued, his voice like ice. Not to kill her immediately, to poison her, break her wolf, make her unfit to inherit. Then you'd step in, claiming I'd failed to protect the heir, that Northridge needed stronger leadership. This is insanity. Kane's voice rose. You're believing the word of a rogue over 30 years of loyal service. I'm believing the evidence. Gregory held up a document. This is your father's signature on the orders that authorize the genocide of 15 packs. And this, another document, is your requisition for the same toxin used on those packs, the same toxin found in Leanna Brady's blood. Kane's mask cracked. His eyes went cold and calculating. She shouldn't even be alive, he said softly. Meadowbrook should have burned clean. No survivors. No witnesses. The admission hung in the air like poison. Gregory's face went absolutely rigid. You just confessed to mass murder. I confessed to cleaning up your predecessor's mess, Kane snarled. Weak packs. Disloyal bloodlines. They were a cancer. They were innocent. They were in the way. Kane's composure shattered completely. Just like you're in the way. Just like that broken rogue bitch is in the way. I've spent 30 years building toward this, and I will not let some fated mate bond ruin. He stopped. Too late. The council chamber exploded with shocked voices. Every eye turned to Gregory and Liana. Gregory's jaw tightened. Then he spoke, his voice ringing with absolute authority. Yes, Liana Brady is my fated mate. He moved to stand between her and the council, a wall of protection. And anyone who touches her dies. Anyone who questions her honor answers to me. Anyone who threatens her will learn exactly why I'm called the Winter King. The mate bond surged between them, golden and fierce. Kane laughed, a harsh, broken sound. You'd choose her over your kingdom? Over decades of loyalty? I choose truth over treachery, always. Kane's hand moved to his belt, to the blade sheathed there. Then you've chosen death, Kane whispered, and everything exploded into violence. Chapter 6. Kane moved with the speed of a trained killer. His blade cleared its sheath in a blur of silver, claws extending from his free hand, both coated with a viscous black substance that reeked of poison and death. He lunged at Gregory, time fractured. Liana felt something inside her chest rupture. Not the mate bond, something deeper, something that had been dormant and waiting and screaming to break free for 3 years. Heat exploded through her veins like magma, like lightning, like the moment before a star goes supernova. Her scream tore through the council chamber. The sound wasn't human. It was primal, ancient, carrying harmonics that made every shifter in the room freeze with instinctive recognition. The doors to the chamber blew open, hinges shrieking, and Liana's body convulsed. Her bones began to break. Not the smooth transition of a normal shift. This was violent, cataclysmic, a dam bursting after years of impossible pressure. Her spine arched, her skull restructured with audible cracks. Her skin rippled as fur erupted across her body, like frost spreading across a winter lake. White, pure, blinding white. The transformation took 3 seconds. It felt like dying and being reborn in the same breath. Where Lyanna had stood, a massive wolf now crouched, easily twice the size of a normal shifter, with fur the color of new snow and eyes like chips of glacial ice. Power radiated from her in visible waves, distorting the air, making the temperature in the room plummet. An Arctic sentinel, legend made flesh. Kane's poisoned blade was inches from Gregory's throat. The sentinel moved. She crossed the chamber in a blur of white, faster than thought, faster than fear. Her jaws closed around Kane's wrist with surgical precision. The blade clattered to the floor. Kane screamed as she drove him backward, using her massive body to slam him into the stone wall with enough force to crack the ancient masonry. She pinned him there, one enormous paw on his chest, her teeth at his throat. The entire conclave stood frozen in shock and awe. Gregory shifted in a fluid cascade of power, his black alpha wolf emerging with deadly grace. He moved to stand at Lyanna's shoulder, and together they formed a tableau that would be carved into Northridge history. White wolf and black wolf, sentinel and king, united and utterly dominant. Kane struggled weakly beneath the sentinel's paw. His eyes were wide with terror, all his cunning and calculation stripped away, leaving only a prey animal facing its apex predator. The sentinel's jaws tightened. One snap and Kane would be dead. The council held its breath. For a long moment, nothing moved. The sentinel's ice-blue eyes burned into Kane, seeing him, judging him, weighing his life against the 23 wolves of Meadowbrook who would never breathe again. Then, deliberately, she opened her jaws. She stepped back, releasing him alive. The mercy was more devastating than violence. It said, "You're not worth killing. You're not worth the blood on my teeth." Whispers erupted through the conclave. "Sentinel, the old blood, I thought they were extinct. She's legend made flesh." The sentinel turned her massive head toward Gregory's wolf. Their eyes met, ice blue and storm gray. For a heartbeat, they simply stood there, two halves of something that had finally become whole. Then Gregory's wolf moved closer, pressing his shoulder against hers in a gesture of unity and claim that every shifter present understood. Mine. Mate. Equal. The sentinel's head dipped slightly, accepting, acknowledging. Hers. Alpha Sergio Castro of the Western Ridge found his voice first. An Arctic sentinel. His tone carried reverence and barely concealed fear. The records say they were the first alphas, the original bloodline. Before the Great Fracture, they were our queens. She saved the air, another alpha said quietly, and she chose mercy over vengeance. She's his true mate, Madeline added, her voice carrying through the chamber. Fated by the old laws, bound by blood and destiny. Kane laughed from where he slumped against the wall. A broken, bitter sound. You think you've won? This changes nothing. The Conclave will never accept a broken rogue as Luna Queen, sentinel or not. The white wolf's head swung toward him. She didn't growl, didn't snarl, simply looked at him with those ancient ice-blue eyes until he stopped talking and started shaking. Gregory shifted back to human form, utterly unconcerned with his nakedness. An alpha in his own territory needed no clothing to command respect. He pulled a cloak from the back of a chair and fastened it around his shoulders, then moved to stand before the conclave. Kane Fox, you are charged with high treason, conspiracy to commit murder, genocide, and attempting to assassinate both the heir and the king. His voice was cold and absolute. "You will be imprisoned. You will testify against your co-conspirators. You will spend the rest of your life watching everything you built turn to ash." He turned to face the assembled alphas, the sentinel still standing at his back, a vision of power and impossible grace. "And this," Gregory said, gesturing to the white wolf, "is Lyanna Brady, my fated mate, Arctic Sentinel, the wolf who saved my daughter's life and chose mercy when vengeance was her right." His voice dropped to something dangerous. "Anyone who questions her place at my side can challenge me now, or forever hold their peace." Silence. No one moved. No one spoke. The sentinel's form shimmered. Bones restructured again, gentler this time, and Lyanna stood there in human form, naked, exhausted, magnificent. Gregory moved without thinking, wrapping his cloak around her shoulders, pulling her against his chest. She collapsed into him, and he caught her, lifting her into his arms. "Behold," he said to the conclave, his voice ringing with finality, "your Luna Queen." Chapter 7. Kane slumped against the cracked stone wall, blood trickling from where his head had struck the masonry. 4 guards surrounded him now, silver-laced chains in their hands, but he made no move to resist. All the fight had drained from him the moment the sentinel's jaws had released his throat. Gregory stood before him, arms crossed, his presence filling the council chamber with cold authority. Lyanna stood at his side, wrapped in his cloak, still trembling from the shift but standing tall. Her wolf was quiet now, satisfied, waiting. "Talk," Gregory commanded. "All of it. Every pack. Every conspiracy. Every lie." Kane laughed, a broken, wet sound. "Why? You already know." "Because they need to hear it." Gregory gestured to the assembled conclave. "Every alpha in this room, every witness, you will confess everything, or I will let her ask you again." He didn't need to specify who "her" was. Kane's eyes flicked to Lyanna and away, unable to hold her gaze for more than a heartbeat. "Fine," Kane's voice cracked. "Fine. You want the truth?" Meadowbrook was weak. They questioned the old policies, questioned the military budget, questioned whether rogues should be executed on sight. His lip curled. "They were infection waiting to spread. So we cleansed them. Military strike, midnight raid, silver ammunition, and a toxin my father developed decades ago, designed to break wolves, make them human, make them helpless." The council chamber was deathly silent. "How many?" Alpha Sergio Castro asked quietly. "How many packs did you cleanse?" 15, over 30 years. Some were my father's work. 8 were mine." Kane's voice held no remorse, only bitter pragmatism. "All of them questioning authority. All of them weak links that would have fractured the conclave from within." "They were innocent," Madeline said, her voice shaking with fury. "They were obstacles." Kane met Gregory's eyes. "Just like you were becoming an obstacle. Too soft, too concerned with justice over strength, letting broken rogues live, questioning military funding. The conclave needs a warrior king, not a diplomat." "So you decided to make yourself king," Gregory said flatly. "I decided to do what was necessary." Kane gestured at Lyanna with his uninjured hand. "The plan was perfect. Poison the air. Break her wolf, make her unfit to inherit. You'd be consumed with grief, distracted, vulnerable. I'd step in, unite the fractured conclave under strong military leadership, and restore order." His voice turned bitter. "But this broken rogue bitch survived Meadowbrook, found Maxine, saved her, became your fated mate, ruined everything." "The embezzlement," Madeline prompted coldly. "Tell them about that." Kane shrugged. the gesture almost casual despite the chains now being locked around his wrists. Military discretionary funds, easy to skim when you control the audits. 3 million over 15 years, used to fund the operations, pay bribes, purchase specialized weapons. He looked at Gregory with something like pity. You never even noticed. Too trusting. That's always been your weakness. Alpha Reina Salas surged to her feet. Execution! Immediately! This monster doesn't deserve another breath. Voices rose in agreement. The council erupted with demands for blood, for justice, for Kane's head separated from his body. Gregory raised one hand. Silence fell. No, he said quietly. My king? Reina stared at him in disbelief. Death would be mercy. Gregory's voice was cold as winter midnight. And he'll receive none. Life imprisonment. Solitary confinement. He'll testify against every accomplice, expose every conspiracy, watch as we dismantle everything he built brick by brick. He moved closer to Kane, his expression carved from ice. You'll live to see your father's legacy erased. Every pack you destroyed will be memorialized. Their names will be remembered with honor, while yours becomes synonymous with treachery. You'll watch from your cell as the Conclave flourishes under the leadership you deemed too weak. Kane's face went pale. That's your sentence, Gregory continued. To live, to remember, to witness your failure every single day until death finally claims you decades from now. He leaned in close. And you'll know that a broken rogue became the strongest wolf in this territory. That mercy defeated your violence, that everything you believed was wrong. Liana stepped forward then, her voice quiet but carrying through the chamber. Meadowbrook Pack, 23 wolves. They deserve to be named. Gregory nodded. Madeline, retrieve the records. We'll memorialize them. All of them. Every pack Kane destroyed. It won't change anything, Kane said, but his voice held no conviction now. Only hollowness. They're still dead, but they'll be remembered. Liana's ice-blue eyes, still carrying an echo of her wolf, bored into him. As innocent, as murdered, as worthy. While you'll be remembered as the coward who killed children in the dark and called it strength. Kane flinched as if she'd struck him. Take him away, Gregory ordered. Maximum security, silver-reinforced cell, no visitors except council and investigators. The guards hauled Kane to his feet. As they dragged him toward the chamber doors, he looked back one final time. You think you've won, he said to Gregory. But accepting her as your mate makes you weak. The Conclave will fracture. Enemies will see vulnerability. They'll see an Arctic sentinel standing at my shoulder, Gregory interrupted. And they'll remember why legends are feared. The doors closed behind Kane with echoing finality. The Conclave remained silent for a long moment. Then Alpha Sergio stood, placing his fist over his heart in the traditional gesture of respect. Luna Queen, he said formally. Northridge is honored. One by one, the other Alphas stood. Fists over hearts. Heads bowed. Liana felt tears prick her eyes. 3 years ago, she'd been no one. Broken. Worthless. Now she stood before the most powerful Alphas in the territory, acknowledged and accepted. Gregory's hand found hers, their fingers intertwining. Justice, he said quietly, not vengeance. That's how we break the cycle. Liana squeezed his hand, feeling her wolf settle contentedly in her chest for the first time in 3 years. Justice, she agreed, and mercy, and truth. The foundations of everything they'd build together. Chapter 8. The moment Kane was dragged from the chamber, Liana's legs gave out. The adrenaline that had carried her through the transformation, through the confrontation, through standing before the conclave as something more than human, it all drained away at once. Her knees buckled, the world tilted sideways. Gregory caught her before she hit the floor. His arms came around her with a gentleness that contradicted everything about his reputation. He lifted her against his chest, as if she weighed nothing, as if she was something precious that needed protecting, and Liana was too exhausted to fight the gesture. "I've got you," he murmured against her hair. "I've got you." He turned to face the assembled conclave, Liana cradled in his arms, wrapped in his black wolf cloak. The symbolism was unmistakable, a public claiming, a declaration of protection, a promise written in the oldest language their kind understood. "Behold Liana de Jesus." Gregory's voice rang through the chamber with absolute authority. "Luna Queen of Northridge, Arctic Sentinel, my fated mate, the wolf who saved my daughter and showed mercy when vengeance was her right." He paused, his gaze sweeping across every face in the room. "I failed her." The admission came hard, but Gregory forced the words out. "I let my grief blind me, my prejudice, my fear. I looked at her and saw weakness when I should have seen strength. I saw a threat when I should have seen salvation." His arms tightened around Liana. "But she saved my daughter anyway. She stood before this council and faced false accusations with dignity. She transformed into legend and chose mercy over violence." His voice dropped, became something dangerous and absolute. "Any who question her honor answer to me. Any who threaten her will learn why winter is the cruelest season. She is my mate, my queen, and the future of this territory." He looked down at Liana, and his expression softened in a way the conclave had never seen. "And I will spend the rest of my life proving I deserve her." Liana's eyes filled with tears. She buried her face against his chest, unable to speak, unable to process the magnitude of what was happening. Gregory carried her from the chamber, leaving Madeline to handle the details, the questions, the political aftermath. Right now, none of it mattered. Only the woman in his arms mattered. He took her to his chambers, not the medical room, not a guest suite, but his private rooms, where no one entered without invitation. The space was austere, almost military in its simplicity, but warm. A massive bed dominated one wall, covered in furs and blankets. A fireplace crackled with fresh flames. Gregory set Liana down carefully on the bed, then sat beside her, his hand finding hers. "I'm sorry," he said quietly, "for everything, for not trusting you, for fighting the bond, for making you feel like you were worth less than—" "Stop!" Liana's voice cracked. "Please stop." And then she was crying. Not the quiet, dignified tears she'd held back for 3 years, but the kind of sobbing that came from a soul that had finally found safety enough to shatter. 3 years of grief, of loneliness, of believing she was broken and worthless. It all poured out in ragged, gasping breaths. Gregory pulled her against him, wrapping her in his arms, his warmth, his strength. "You were never broken," he whispered fiercely. "Never. Your wolf was suppressed, poisoned, stolen from you. But you were never less than whole. You survived a massacre. You stayed alive for 3 years with nothing but determination. You saved my daughter when you had every reason to let yourself die." His hand stroked her hair. "You're the strongest person I've ever met, Liana, and I was a fool not to see it." "I thought I'd always be alone," she sobbed against his chest. "I thought I'd never have a pack again, never have a home, never be anything but—" "You're home now." Gregory's voice was absolute. "You're not running anymore. This is your territory, your pack, your family." He pulled back just enough to cup her face in his hands, his thumbs wiping away her tears. "You're home, Liana. And nothing will take that from you again, I swear it. The door creaked open. Maxine stood in the doorway, clutching her stuffed wolf, her eyes huge and worried. Papa? Is the nice lady okay? Gregory smiled, a real smile, soft and full of love. Come here, little wolf. Maxine scrambled onto the bed, crawling between them, her small body warm and trusting. She curled against Liana's side, and Liana's arms came around her automatically, instinctively. You're staying now, right? Maxine asked, looking up at Liana with those huge blue eyes. You're not going away? I'm staying, Liana whispered, the words feeling like a vow. I promise. Good. Maxine snuggled closer. Because you're my mama now. Papa said so. Liana's breath caught. She looked at Gregory over Maxine's head, question and hope and fear all tangled together. Gregory's expression was tender, vulnerable in a way she'd never seen. If you'll have us. Liana thought about the girl she'd been 3 years ago, broken, lost, convinced she'd never belong anywhere again. She thought about the woman she'd become, survivor, sentinel, strong enough to show mercy when hate would have been easier. And she thought about this man who'd fought their bond every step of the way, who'd been cruel and cold and terrified, but who was looking at her now like she was the answer to every question he'd forgotten how to ask. I stopped running, she whispered, the realization settling into her bones like truth. I finally stopped running. Gregory leaned across their daughter, and kissed her. It was gentle, reverent, full of promise and apology, and the beginning of something neither of them had thought possible. When they pulled apart, Maxine was already asleep between them, her breathing soft and even. Liana lay back against the pillows, Gregory's arm around her shoulders, his child, their child, safe and warm between them. Home, her wolf whispered contentedly. Pack, family, ours. Ours, Liana agreed, and let herself finally rest. This family, Gregory, Liana, and Maxine, they found each other when they'd all lost hope. If this story made you feel something real, that's why we're here. Hit subscribe to join a community that believes in second chances, in mercy over vengeance, in choosing to stand when it would be easier to run. And comment your country or city. I want to see how far this message of hope has reached. If you can't stand people who judge others for being broken, comment everyone deserves belonging. Chapter 9. 3 weeks after the conclave trial, Liana stood before a full-length mirror in the royal chambers and barely recognized herself. The woman staring back wore ceremonial armor, silver-white metal etched with ancient wolf symbols fitted to her body like a second skin. Her dark hair had been braided with winter flowers. Her scarred hands, no longer bandaged, rested at her sides with quiet confidence, and her eyes, those same eyes that had once held nothing but exhaustion and defeat, now burned with purpose. You look like a queen, Madeline said from the doorway, genuine warmth in her voice. I feel like I'm playing dress-up, Liana admitted. You saved the heir, exposed a traitor, and transformed into a legendary wolf in front of the entire conclave. Madeline smiled. I think you've earned the armor. The coronation ceremony was held in the Great Hall, packed with alphas from every allied territory. Liana walked down the center aisle alone. Gregory had insisted, saying she'd earned her crown through her own strength, not his. And the crowd fell silent as she passed. She could feel their eyes, the curiosity, the reverence, the whispered questions about Arctic sentinels and ancient bloodlines, and what it meant that one walked among them again. But she didn't lower her gaze, didn't shrink. She'd learned that strength wasn't about never being afraid, it was about being terrified and walking forward anyway. Gregory waited at the dais, Maxine standing beside him in a miniature version of formal dress. When Lyanna reached them, he took her hands in his, and the mate bond hummed between them like a living thing. "Lyanna Brady," he said, his voice carrying through the hall. "You came to us broken and made yourself whole. You were condemned and proved yourself innocent. You were rejected and chose mercy." He lifted the crown, delicate silver worked to look like winter branches, and placed it on her head. "I crown you, Luna Queen of Northridge. May your reign be long, and your justice be tempered with the mercy you've shown us all." The hall erupted in ceremonial howls, the sound shaking the ancient rafters. But the moment that broke, Lyanna came afterward, when they unveiled the memorial stone in the courtyard. Carved from white granite, it bore 23 names, every wolf from Meadowbrook Pack, and beneath them, simple words. They were innocent. They are remembered. Lyanna traced her parents' names with trembling fingers. They were real again. Not just ghosts haunting her nightmares, but people who'd lived and loved and deserved to be mourned. "Mama?" Maxine tugged at her sleeve. "Why are you crying?" The word hit Lyanna like a physical blow. Mama. Not the nice lady or Papa's maid, but Mama. She knelt down, pulling Maxine into her arms, and couldn't stop the tears. "Happy crying, little wolf. These are happy tears." Maxine hugged her fiercely. "Good, because you're my mama now. Forever." "Forever," Lyanna promised. That night, after the celebrations had ended and the guests had departed, Gregory took Lyanna to his chambers, not for ceremony or politics, but for them. The mating bond completion was ancient ritual and modern choice intertwined. His teeth at her throat, her claws down his back, their wolves rising and twining together until it was impossible to tell where one ended and the other began. It was tender and fierce and healing, years of loneliness burned away in the heat of finally belonging to someone who chose you, scars and all. Afterward, they lay tangled together in the darkness, and Gregory whispered against her hair. "I love you. I should have said it weeks ago, but I was a coward. I love you, Lyanna, my mate, my queen, my salvation." "I love you too," she whispered back. "Even when you were terrible to me, even when I shouldn't have. I loved you." "We're going to be insufferable, aren't we?" She laughed, the sound light and free. "Absolutely insufferable." Later, when the moon rose full and bright, they shifted together, White Wolf and Black Wolf standing side by side in the courtyard. Maxine watched from the window, waving as they took off running into the forest. They raced through the snow like children, playing and hunting and reveling in the simple joy of being whole. Lyanna's sentinel wolf was massive and powerful, but she'd forgotten how to play, and Gregory taught her, tackling her into snowdrifts, stealing her kills, making her chase him through the trees until they were both panting with laughter. Finally, they climbed to the highest cliff overlooking Northridge territory. The forest stretched below them, silver with moonlight, beautiful and wild and home. They stood together, shoulder to shoulder, two wolves who'd found each other against impossible odds, and they howled. Their voices rose together, intertwining, echoing across the mountains, a declaration of territory and triumph and healing, a promise that the cycle of violence was broken, that mercy had defeated hatred, that love had conquered fear. In the fortress below, Maxine heard the howl and smiled in her sleep. In his cell, Cain heard it and turned his face to the wall. In territories across the region, alphas heard it and whispered about Arctic sentinels walking again, about what it meant, about what changes were coming. But on that cliff, Lyanna and Gregory simply stood together, finally free. The future would bring challenges, conspirators to root out, territories to stabilize, the implications of a legendary bloodline reawakened. But they'd face it together, as mates, as partners, as equals. The white wolf pressed against the black wolf's shoulder. The black wolf leaned into the touch. "Home," both their wolves whispered. "Pack. Forever." The wind carried their howl across the winter landscape, a song of endings and beginnings, of pain transformed into strength, of two broken souls who'd found each other and made themselves whole. Dawn was coming, and they would face it together. The end.